Well, I think it's been obvious for some while now that these rapid and fundamental changes, developments in digital media technologies, fundamentally restructuring pretty well every aspect of journalism and journalism studies. And because journalism is such a significant institution in our society, changes there have implications for the political, social, and certainly even the cultural life. And so these changes are not only wide-ranging, not only fundamental, but deeply significant. And if you're a scholar of journalism studies, a researcher or a teacher of journalism, then they're fascinating. And we need to monitor them and see what's going on here. I want a place where we can catalogue and record these fundamental changes. Every aspect of what journalists do is different. Their relationships with audiences, their relationships with sources, the revenues and the sources of revenues that fund their activities. Everything is up for grabs. So we need to record these very basic changes. They're happening so fast. We also need a repository for research. And I suppose the thing that journals have always done, they've been a place where academics hang out, where you hang your intellectual hat. They're a discursive space to discuss and respond to these changes. And I think there's been a crying need for such a journal for at least 5 years. It's now a cacophonous din, a howling, raging, let's do it sort of roar of a noise. And so with the support of Routledge, Taylor and Francis, I decided we should set up a new journal to do all these things. It's about all aspects of digital journalism, all aspects of the ways in which scholarly research responds to these changes. In one sense, at its most general, it's tied up with the debate that's grown over the last 5 or 6 years or so about the future of journalism itself. And we have contributed, I hope, in a good way to that debate here at Cardiff with our biannual conferences called The Future of Journalism. But all sorts of fascinating things are happening here. Social media, Facebook, Twitter are now key sources of stories and drivers of the news. They overtook Google a couple of weeks ago in a recent report here as the main drivers of people to websites. That's very significant. There's all sorts of other things. The development of mobile technology, which puts journalists on a long, long lead. It means they can roam freely. It means the spaces and places where news is produced and consumed are radically different. We don't read a newspaper on a bus anymore. We get text alerts. This is very, very important. And then there are new research methods. How do we study this? There are new types of journalism, data journalism, where journalists scour using new data mining software millions of sources of news to try and find correlations, disjunctures that raise questions, very interesting questions. There is the whole debate about the transparency and credibility of sources. Everyone cites the Arab Spring. When journalists, formal professional journalists working in so-called legacy media can't get in, we're grateful for citizen sources, films, and again, social media here, come in here again, Flickr. New business models. We've got to find ways with the collapse of traditional media and traditional advertising. How are we going to fund this activity? So, hundreds of questions. The growth of WikiLeaks and investigative journalism. Goodness me, just everything is up for grabs. How are we going to change the way we educate and train journalists? How are new ethical problems emerging, or old ones reframed in the context of digital media? We're already looking at establishing and exploring a history of online journalism. And so there's so much to go at. I think it's going to be great. And we're going to try and catch it all, of course. We have 8 fantastic articles if you want to know what's covered there, but it runs across the range of concerns I've mentioned. First issue of the journal, Volume 1, Number 1, will be published as hard copy and in digital free download format on the 1st of February 2013.